be bold, be heard. Welcome to Unmute Your Mic with your host, Jessica Bell.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Unmute Your Mic. My name is Jessica Bell, and I am your host today. I am in Kansas City, Missouri, and today I have Jasmin Carroll with me. I am so excited for you all to hear her story, hear what God is doing in her life. She is in Los Angeles, California. Jasmin, if you could just introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about you, and we can get this conversation going.
Of course. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. This is such an amazing opportunity, so thank you.
Of course.
Yes, as you mentioned, my name is Jasmin Carroll. I am based here in Los Angeles, and I'm a Los Angeles native, born and raised. I do not mind calling myself a Valley girl. I'm a straight up Valley girl. San Fernando, went to elementary, middle school, high school. I even went to college out here in the Valley. So I'm a Valley girl through and through. And let's see, I graduated S.I.S.N., actually, Cal State Northridge, with a degree in finance. So I have a background in finance, accounting, to which I worked and established a pretty solid career in accounting. And for 10 years, just under 10 years, I worked for a prominent film school here in Hollywood, nonprofit. And, God has really blessed me and prospered me in that season. I experienced promotions and a little bit of, a little success, I can say, and it's afforded me a lot of opportunities and especially growth. And with my career, there's also, of course, so much going on in my personal life and what a journey God has, took me through on that end. But all to say, towards the end of my finance career, God started to lead me kind of in a different direction. And it was completely different outside of my radar. I had no plans for what I'm doing currently. And that's all to set up that I'm also the founder of a women's group called She Is Single, Not Alone, aka S.I.S.N.A, the acronym. And it's a ministry dedicated to helping empower, equip single women embrace their season of singleness.
And so what led you to that? Because that is such a powerful thing to start. So what was it that kind of led you that direction?
Two major things, and I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. Of course, with all things, with God, the stories are so elaborate and beautiful and intricate, and there's so many varying details and factors, but I'll keep it to the point. Two things. So I got saved. I rededicated my life to Christ back in 2015, and I really became on fire the beginning of 2016. So as I was going back into church, I was starting to get into the word, watching sermons and just soaking up the word. Going to church faithfully, I found a church home that I really loved and was growing. One thing I noticed was, and even growing up in the church, there are amazing ministries for the kids, for the marrieds, men, women, but where are the singles at? Where are the ministries for singles, and how come we don't get any love, if you will? So I noticed, not that there was anything wrong, but there was just something missing. And so I noticed that very early on. And the few ministries that I did know of for singles, it was more centered around social activities or social events, like, meetups or hangouts. And so I was like, okay, well, that's cool. But me personally, I want to be equipped. I like the depth, meaty teachings. Like, what does the word say about this season?
Yeah.
And then, so I kept that in my back pocket. And so as time progressed, I was, working in I had my job, and there was a point where I kind of got tired of it. I wanted something more. I knew there was more for me. I just didn't know what that looked like. To me, I thought it was just elevating in my finance career, to the point where I wanted to be like an executive at a VP of finance, eventually. I wanted to climb the corporate ladder. And so every chance I got to leave the position I was in and the organization I was working for, I took it. So I joke and I say I must have applied to every studio because I desperately just wanted, to leave and to continue to grow.
Yeah.
And so I came across this one position that I interviewed for, and I was like, this is it. God led me to, that big break I've been seeking and yearning for. So I made it through all the interview rounds, and all the interviews were going amazing, fantastic. I was getting, all these crazy confirmations, and I'm like, yes, this is it. Mind you, this is now the spring of 2018. So everything's looking great. I'm convinced that I'm going to get this job. Dream job, by the way.
Yeah.
And so, long story short, in June, because it was a process over a few months, in June, I remember June 11th, 2018, I got that dreadful email that I did not get the position. And Jess, I was devastated.
Yeah.
I was devastated. You would have thought I was going through a breakup. You would have thought someone died. I was just so devastated is the best word to use for that situation. So I'm dealing with the disappointment and the anger I had towards God. Like, God, how can you set me up just to shut the door in my face? Like, why even take me through all that to begin with?
Yeah.
And so it was around my birthday. My birthday's at the end of June. So I went on a solo trip to Canada and hit it off with my Airbnb hosts. And I was like, I'm going to go on this trip, rehash things with God. I know there's something that it wasn't God. There's something I had to miss.
Yeah.
I've had to like missed or, kind of like veered left somehow. And so again, long story short, it was still to this day one of the best trips of my life. I hit it off with my Airbnb host and I actually led him to Christ.
Wow.
Was not planned. I had no intentions of doing. I just wanted to, make things right with God on this trip, and this whole thing happened. And so I come back home and I share the good news with my family and the trip. And my brother Jordan, he says, Jasmin, you went on a missions trip, right? Like you did mission work. And I was like, I guess I did. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
I literally had to choke back tears because in that moment, I realized my life is not about me. And I made this job about what it would do for me, what it would look like for me, and how it was just me, all about me, God blessing me, and how I was gonna, climb that corporate ladder, make a lot of money, and have the status. And so, in that moment, I realized my life is not about me. My life and, being a follower of Christ, it's all about him and glorifying him and sharing the good news. So I continue on with that revelation. I'm going to a new church at that point. I join a women's group just to be more involved and make new friends, whatnot. And over the course of several weeks, 2 different women approached me, different times, different days, and told me, Jasmin, you should consider leading your own group. And I was like, what? Me? No way. Number one, I'm a super introvert. I'm one of those people who like sits in the back corner or against the wall. I'm the observer. I'm the listener. I'll drop 2 cents if I feel really compelled. But otherwise, no, there's no way. But after the second woman told me, I was like, well, if someone else is telling me, a second person, there must be something here.
Yeah.
So that was just the seed that God used these two women to plant. And so I started thinking about it, and I was like, well, how hard can it be? And so I started really considering it. And then I agreed. And then I thought, okay, well, if I'm going to start a group, it's definitely going to obviously be catered to women. And then boom, where the singles at? So linking it back to my observations early in my walk, there isn't a lot of representation or a lot of ministries dedicated to single women, men too, of course. But so I was like, okay, this is going to be a group for the single girls. And we're not just going to get together and talk about how miserable we are about being single. It's not going to be about, 10 steps to how to find your husband.
Right.
I wanted, which is, there are ministries dedicated to that, and that's wonderful. But I wanted to take a different approach to this. So I said, yes, okay, I'm going to do it. It's going to be a singles group. And then again, another series of events, boom, the Holy Spirit downloads the name. She is single, not alone. And I was like, perfect. Yes. Wow. It sounds good. And so September 2018 was my first season that I held the women's group. She is single, not alone.
That is amazing. And I think what's so good is that even as believers, sometimes we can get into kind of like that selfish mindset where it's like, God, you love me, so I know you're going to bless me with this.
Yes.
God. And sometimes it's strictly just about obedience, or it's just about God getting us exactly where he needs to get us. So then he can be like, now you're right where I want you. Now let me download what you're really about to do.
I could not have said it better. Yes. And you know what? Later that year in 2018, December, I went on another trip. Side note, I like to travel. And so I remember I was reading a book on the plane, and the book was called It's Not Supposed to Be This Way by Lisa Turkhurst. And I was so moved, and I had a revelation about disappointment. And the revelation was that disappointments are like spiritual reset buttons.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the intersection between, God fulfilling my will versus meeting his will. You know what I mean?
That's good.
So I was like, you know what? It sucked to go through. It was hard to go through, and it took me a while to heal and get over it, or move on rather. But I needed that, because had it not been for that devastation, that jolt of like, oh wait, it's God, who's leading me in the call and the will for my life. I needed it. And had it not been for that situation, who knows where S.I.S.N.A, if S.I.S.N.A would have ever showed up,
Yeah. And
so,
that's what's so great too, is that like the obedience, there are people tied to our obedience.
That's right.
And so, it's so important that we get to a place where we're walking closely enough with God to where we can hear him when he downloads these things to us and says like, hey, this is what I want you to do. Because there's a lot of times where we're called to do stuff, but if we're so caught up in our will, then it's so cloudy we can't really hear God. Or we think we're hearing God, but we're not sure.
Exactly.
And so I think that's amazing that one, that you even saw that is a need, because being in church, being around single people all the time, it's like sometimes you can feel like in church, and this is not a knock to church or anybody's church, but sometimes you can feel like everything is preparing you to be a wife, and it's like just get to be a wife, and once you get married, then you'll have the fulfillment of your life,
right?
And there's so much that can be done in the season of like, I'm not there yet, and you're not less than or short, or like your cup's not half empty because you're not married yet.
Yes.
And so I just wanted to ask you, so God downloaded this and you were like, okay, I'm going to do this. And what were some of the challenges that you kind of had in the initial starting phase of it?
Me getting in the way, because as I previously mentioned, I'm an introvert. I do not consider myself a public speaker. I'm kind of the person, I don't like all eyes on me. I'm kind of the person in the background. So I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, God,
yeah,
I have no idea what I'm doing, and low key, I still don't.
yeah.
So, it came to a point where, number one, I wanted to be obedient, because I knew in my heart, my soul, my spirit, that God was calling me to do this. And above anything, everything else, I wanted to be obedient to that. And so my own insecurities got in the way. Between, my family and I, we talk about, we call it the Moses syndrome. Like, I'm not an eloquent speaker. Just fear, insecurity is what was holding me back and causing me to question a lot of it. But Lord God, I want to be obedient. And if you're calling me to do this, you have to come through. Give me the words. I love the scripture, when God is speaking to Moses and he's like, did I not create the tongue? So God, grab a hold of my tongue, because I don't even know what to say, where to start. And as I started to take the initial steps, everything just started to fall into place. And to God be the glory, because the group was met with success. And again, I didn't want it to be, a social event where we just get together and, girl chat. Nothing wrong with that, but this was not that kind of group. I really wanted to dedicate and make this group, digging deep into the issues. And just like you said, using maximizing this time of singleness to work out our issues, to, find identity, purpose, and drawing closer, pushing these women closer to Christ.
And that is so good, because I love that you knew what your vision was. Like, once God gave it to you, you're like, okay, so I don't just want it to be like a hangout. I don't want it to be just we're just talking about how much you can't stand men. Like, like it's
right.
because
Yes.
things can easily turn like that. And if you don't know what it is that God called you specifically to do, then it's so easy, can take the shape in the form of worldliness, or not even worldliness, but just something that was not what you were supposed to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so everybody, if you are just tuning in, I am talking to Jasmin. She is from Los Angeles, California, and we are talking about her ministry that she started for single women. And Jasmin, so another question I wanted to ask you was, so what specifically happens in these meetings or these episodes, or I don't know what exactly you call them, the show, but what happens on one of these like typical meetings?
That's such a good question. So I operate it consider it like a semester, semester of college or school. I run it for 10 weeks at a time. I think 10 weeks is like kind of that sweet spot where it's like you feel full, you got a lot of you got equipped, we learned a lot, and borderline like, okay, now it's going on for too long. So it's 10-week sessions once a week, every Friday. And so the format pretty much is I do a teaching on a particular topic. So prior to every season or semester, I ask the Lord what he wants to tell his women, his daughters. And so I get a bunch of downloads, and then I kind of outline each topic. And then as the weeks come up, I fill in kind of like the blanks. Okay. So I start with like a mini teaching on a particular topic. And then when we were meeting in person, depending on the topic, I had women do exercises, as in written exercises. Because for me, I'm one of those, I'm a deep thinker. I like to I need understanding. Like, why do I do the things that I do? Why do I think the ways that I think? Why do I say the things that I say? Yeah. S.I.S.N.A is all about getting to the root, peeling back the layers, however many there are, and just getting to a place, asking the questions, asking the deeper questions, And most of it's as simple as why, until you get to the root. So those are what the written exercises are for. And that was very well received. But now that we are on Zoom, due to what's going on, we meet on Zoom. And again, same format. I do a teaching on a particular topic. And then at the end, I leave enough room for discussion. So I will ask thought-provoking questions that kind of, spark discussion, even debate. We've had some very interesting debates on there. So this is all about, almost like an open forum of sorts. And so, on Zoom, we it's more discussion, but it's primarily teaching, and then followed by following up with questions.
That's awesome. And so do you keep it to a certain size? Can just anybody join? If I have listeners or people who are interested in this, how would that work for them?
Yeah, it's open. The ministry is dedicated to single women. However, this season, I'm in season 5. I am opening up to all women just because of the specific topic we're talking about this season. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they can reach me email or Instagram, and they can shoot me a DM email, and I can give them the information.
Perfect. So I wanted to ask you, what is some advice that you can give to the single woman that is listening right now, who is just kind of in the place where she feels like she's not complete until she's married, or, maybe she's newly single. Maybe she doesn't want to be single, but she needs to maximize this time and not feel like she's at a deficit. What is some advice that you could give to that person listening right now?
The best advice I can give is maximize this time, use this time to seek the Lord. Because we hear this all the time, but no person, no man, no friendship, nothing can fulfill you. And as long as you are seeking, in case of the single woman, as long as you are seeking to be fulfilled by a man or relationship, marriage, that's a gap, that's a void that will never be fulfilled. So singleness is the time to seek the Lord, become whole, get full in Him, pursue Him, understand who you are in Christ, first and foremost, because until we get that revelation, we're looking to other people to tell us who we are. There's only one who can tell us, and that's God, that's Christ. So seek God, use this time to really seek God for your identity and your purpose. Because once you start operating in your purpose, in God's perfect timing, then He's going to bring along the man whom you complement each other, and your purposes, the calls on your life will complement each other. And then once that marriage takes place, when God unites you two, then you can walk together in purpose, in pursuit of Him. But until then, this is the time to seek God and everything that He has for you in this season now.
I love that. And identity is so important. It is so important to know who you are. I feel like I talk about this all the time with the youth that I work with, but it's like, if you don't know who you are and you allow somebody else to define you, like, that is such a scary place to be in. Right. And especially entering into a relationship, like, you don't want to go into a relationship expecting the other person to tell you who you are.
Exactly.
So that's such an amazing point. So then on the flip side of that, if I'm somebody who just wants to, start a ministry, or God has called me to do something and I'm a little hesitant to start going, what would be your advice there?
Oof. It's going to require complete faith. The obedience is there. It would sound like the obedience is there. You want to do it, but it takes a complete surrender. Just surrender to, and whatever you resist persists. So give up the fight of just trying to, be a certain way, come off a certain way, comparing yourself to others. That was a big one for me, comparing yourself to others who are already doing it, who are years ahead. And one step at a time. Literally just take the first steps and God will meet you, and literally lay everything out. Oof, getting goosebumps.
Yeah.
But that first step is complete and utter surrender and trust, absolute trust and faith in him.
Yeah, that's so important. And that reminds me of something you said a little earlier in the conversation, where you said, I knew God wouldn't call me to something and then just kind of leave me. And I think that is such an important factor to remember too, is that, like, if God is putting something on your heart and telling you to do something, he's not going to say, go do this, and then walk away and then watch you just, fall on your face.
Exactly.
Like, the resources will come, and even like what you said with starting your ministry, it's like there were people who were ready to receive that ministry.
Yes.
So that means that there were people that were there waiting and ready for you to be obedient. And I think that is such a humbling thing too, to be in a place where it's like, wow, God, you called me to do something. And meanwhile, there were people who were just like waiting for you to be like, I'm going to start this so that they could get what they needed, not only from you, but from God, obviously.
Absolutely. Which ties to what you said earlier, that there are people connected to our obedience and people are waiting for us to be obedient. So, I mean, full circle. That's so good.
That's amazing.
So good.
And so what do the next couple of years for this ministry look like for you? What are some hopes? What is the vision that you have?
I would love for S.I.S.N.A to expand. Right now it's, it's local, regional. I would love to expand, create chapters in various cities. I would even, big picture, I would love S.I.S.N.A to go global. Yeah. That is big picture. That is definitely part of the vision. I would also love to, start partnering with other ministries and organizations, and cater to single moms, or single women who have endured and survived abuse of various kinds. God willing, conferences. I don't have all the details. I just got the picture, and I'm just literally just trusting God to fulfill and lead it whatever he has for it.
Yeah. And what's great is that we don't have to have all the details. Sometimes it's better if we don't, so we don't scare and back ourselves away, so that we're not like, we don't freak ourselves out in advance.
Exactly. Especially for those who are super analytical and are very into the details. Yeah, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming.
Yeah, because then immediately you're like, okay, a conference, how much? How am I going to do this? I need that, God's like, don't worry about that. That's for later.
Well, just keep doing what I told you to do. Yeah.
Yes. And I love that. And it's so inspiring. That was one of the reasons why I reached out to you, because I saw what you were doing. And I just thought it was so amazing when anyone walks in something that God has called them specifically to do. And just like, I want to encourage you to just be persistent and keep going. And like, I love that you said earlier, not to compare, don't compare. I've definitely have experienced that even with doing a podcast. Like, you look at somebody with 10 million followers and you're like, wait, how?
And then you want to do more. And then you start, you get tempted to get ahead of God. And it's like, wait, no, these people, they're on their own journey. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Don't get ahead of God. On that note, I want to thank you so much. This has been a great conversation. I know that so many people are going to be blessed by hearing this. I'm going to put Jasmin's social media information below. Please reach out to her. If you have any questions, anything about what she's doing, reach out to her, connect with her. I want to thank everybody for listening to Unmute Your Mic. Jasmin, I want to thank you again for being willing to share your heart, share your ministry, and just a little bit of your story, because I know you have a huge story, but just a part that is just really, starting to bless other people. So I want to thank you again. I want to thank everybody else for tuning in.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Bye, Jasmin.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Unmute Your Mic. Be sure to tune in next time when Jessica takes her mic off mute as she continues her journey to find stories that inspire and uplift our communities.